Steve, you ready?
Yes, sir. You gonna start this one off?
This is you.
Oh, me? Okay. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I certainly want to first start off by thanking our community partners, certainly Reverend Wendell Anthony, of the NAACP, Pastor Mo. Pastor Mo, I just want to give you a personal thank you. I know you were out in the front lines to the early hours of the morning, and so your commitment to this city is truly appreciated. So thank you for that. Certainly, Tommy Mahone, I know, who is here with us today, someone we've been working very closely. You've heard me talk about our drifter community, and likewise, I appreciate him, his leadership, and certainly wanting to make a change. There's so many other Detroit activists, the 300, and I certainly don't have all of them listed, but again, yesterday, the men and women of this city who are committed to a safe city, again, they weren't standing in the backgrounds. They gave many speeches to kind of set the tone for yesterday's events, but many stayed around to assist this police department in making sure there's a safe Detroit. And then lastly, I'd like to thank Dr. Darius, who's joining us today. I had the honor of going on Dr. Darius' show yesterday, late afternoon, just to kind of talk to his listening audience. And we talked prior to this briefing, and he assured me and let me know that it was so many of his listening audience that are angry over the fact that outsiders will come into our city and commit crimes and undo what we've worked so hard to create. Applauding the men and women of the Detroit Police Department, I will always give them praise for what they do. I mean, certainly yesterday was no difference. Certainly at the appropriate time later in the evening, the crowd became more agitated. Despite that, our men and women faced that challenge. They were professional, and when it was time to execute, they did so with precision and relied heavily on their training. So, again, thank you, Detroit Police Department. And I want to also thank our state and federal partners, Michigan State Police, Homeland Security, for providing aerial support yesterday. And then lastly, our partners from the FBI, who assisted in providing some intelligence information. So it's so many people to thank. I'm so proud to be called a Detroiter as we look at what's going on around the country. But I really continue to appreciate and applaud the many protesters who've been here over the last several days, who honor Mr. Floyd in shining a light on this injustice perpetrated by police officers who were sworn to protect and serve. And as you heard me say, that at the point when a police officer crosses that line of protecting and serving with excellence, and decide to embark on criminality, they're no longer police officers in my eyes. They might still wear the uniform while they're perpetrating the act, but they have lost that. They are indeed criminals. Yesterday, while many took part in the protest, it was peaceful. Later, it became disruptive in the late evening hours, and the actions of some, frankly, were just criminal. As a result, we made 84 arrests that doubled from the night prior. The majority of those who were arrested lived in the Metro Detroit area, not in Detroit, but outside of Detroit. We also discovered that 2 that were arrested came from the state of Tennessee and Ohio. So again, 84 were arrested last night. My message remains the same as it was yesterday at the beginning of this. If you come to Detroit and commit criminal acts, you will be arrested. And even if we don't arrest you right away, as we did the first night, the criminal that ripped out the front windshield of one of our police vehicles, that individual was arrested the following day. So our number one priority will continue to be keeping our community and our officers safe, as well as our peaceful protesters. And to those who want to come to our city, damage property, know that we will find you and arrest you. Stay home, not in the city of Detroit. And so with that, I turn it over to our leader, Mayor Mike Duggan.
Thank you, Chief, and I want to thank the community partners that are here. This is a very difficult time in this country and a difficult time in the city, and every mayor has no greater responsibility than protecting the safety of their city, and in a lot of cities in this country, it hasn't been able to be protected, and it's something that I worry about for the people of Detroit all the time. I want to start by thanking the leaders of the very successful, peaceful protest that was done yesterday afternoon. The folks went through this city in a very powerful way, reflecting on the injustice that Mr. Floyd felt, and they finished it with a prayer. And it was moving and inspiring, and at the end of it they said to each other, "Go home, be safe, go home, be safe." And I thought for a minute that the request made by the community leaders yesterday was being followed. But then a decent chunk of the people ignored the directives of the organizers. They didn't go home, they headed down Michigan Avenue. And as the night went on, more and more people gathered, and the mood in the crowd went from honoring George Floyd and trying to make change to just being angry and wanting a confrontation. And it was, when I look at what's happened it's unbelievable. Atlanta, Portland, Denver, Columbus, Chicago. I look at what's happened there. We haven't had that level of destruction here, but I think it's been for one reason. It's been the actions of Detroiters. And Pastor Mo was out there, but we saw it on video. We have report after report of somebody saying, let's go do this. Let's throw these rocks. Let's do this. And Detroiters, in very vocal ways, you could actually hear them over many of the courageous media folks who have been embedded Facebook Living saying, no, this is our city. We're not like that in our city. It wasn't police being everywhere. It was the pride of Detroiters saying, this isn't what we do. But as the night went along, you saw what happened. A major confrontation, first at police headquarters, and then continuing to spread throughout the city past 2 in the morning. And when I looked at the police reports today, it is enormously discouraging. After the pleas from the community leaders saying to the men and women of goodwill in the suburbs and other communities, please don't come into the city. Please protest in your own community. You are jeopardizing the safety of our community. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, 65% of the people arrested were outside the city. Yesterday, it went up to 75%. And the great majority of those arrested after midnight or 1 a.m. They weren't here in the honor of anyone's memory. And I look at the cities. People were arrested last night, most of them late into the night, from Midland, from Port Huron, from Saline, from Shelby Township, from Piqua, Ohio, and Nashville, Tennessee. Now let me ask you this. Think about the person who drove up from Nashville, Tennessee, more than 500 miles. How many police departments are within 500 miles of Nashville that have a whole lot more troubled history than anything here? Is the motive really for justice and law enforcement, or is it something else? And that has become more clear as Chief Craig and the police continue to develop evidence that is now emerging and becoming pretty clear that there is a small group of people operating here who are intent on initiating destruction and violence. We're gathering a good deal of information about them. They're very well organized with walkie-talkies and commands. They've got supply vehicles bringing them rocks and bottles and fireworks to shoot at police. And as far as the investigation shows so far, they're not from the city of Detroit. And so you think about what we're facing. When you come in from outside this city, and very likely outside this state, to stir up trouble in Detroit, when you're hiding in a group of protesters that's 75% from outside the city in the first place, it isn't that hard to conceal yourself, although I think we're getting better. And then think about the people who are making up these protests. When 75% of them don't live here, don't have a stake in our community, don't share in the consequence of the aftermath. If something goes wrong, you could see the potential for a handful of well-organized people to incite a problem. And as I discussed this issue with the community leaders here and the chief, and said, what do we do about the fact that we are deploying huge amounts of police officers and the city's being jeopardized by protests that are coming from 75% outside the city, and everybody had the same conclusion. And I've issued an order that as of this evening, there'll be a curfew in the city of Detroit at 8 o'clock. It'll go from 8 o'clock to 5 a.m. And throughout the city, people cannot be on the public streets or in public areas. This doesn't apply if you're going to or from work or you're coming home. If you've got a job at night, it isn't going to be a problem. If you're coming home after 8 o'clock, it's not a problem. This isn't intended for Detroiters. DDOT is going to run its regular bus service. So if you're worried, how do I get to or from my job tonight? DDOT buses will still be running. But yesterday, many of these leaders and others asked our neighbors from the surrounding communities, please don't come into Detroit with this protest. It is jeopardizing us. And I really had hoped when we left here yesterday that request would be honored. But when we see even higher levels of arrests from outside the city, and most disturbingly now, we're starting to see them from other states, I have to act to protect the people of this city. And so I would close by saying this. There are people of goodwill in the surrounding communities who are coming here with good hearts. But I would say to them this: the people of Detroit are in a lot of pain. We're in a lot of pain from the nearly 1,400 members of our community we lost to coronavirus. We're in a lot of pain in what we have seen from law enforcement around this country. We've built a different kind of relationship in the city of Detroit. And I'd say to the people in the surrounding communities, please respect the requests of the African American leaders of this city, and don't add to our pain. Please stay home. And with that, I'll turn it over to a man who was out there all night last night and personally, I think, fended off a number of incidents, Pastor Mo.
Thank you, Mayor. Honor of the Mayor and Chief Craig and all the distinguished guests. Again, my name is Pastor Mo. I want to deal with a couple of facts. Things that we know to be true. Detroit is not, we having a few civil unrest and some things that's just crinkles, but we're not having the same issue that they're having around the country, yes or no? That's a fact, right? And we're not having those issues because of some things. One of those facts and those things are that Detroit has always been different from any other city in the world. We are the Mecca. We are black excellence. We have built this thing up from the bottom, and we are different. We have a pride in one saying we wear on our T-shirt. It says Detroit versus everybody, because we just different. We feel like that, and we live in peace. So we are different in the sense of we say Detroit versus everybody, and that means we're different, and we're seeing different results. Let's go through the facts of what's going on with that. When you look at what's going on with everyone else, let's look at them first. They are looting, they're rioting, they're burning, and they're making a stance, right? And I understand the anger, the passion, and we're not laying down for this anymore because it was wrong, and it's time for America to wake up. I stand with that. I believe in Ungawa Black Power. I believe in Black Lives Matter. I believe in all lives matter. But right now, Black lives are on the floor. It's been on the floor it's been off the floor too long. And the kneeling of Colin Kaepernick took this man kneeling to kill this man for America to really see this. So let's look at why they not mad for no reason. They're not burning for no reason. Get that. Now watch this. They're burning, they mad. But when they get done being mad and burning and looting and stuff, what do you want? What do you want? You want, I asked them in the crowd. I went into the crowd yesterday, and I took the microphone and I spoke to them. They said, you want justice, all right? So when you get done with all that stuff y'all doing everywhere else, you want to have the police chief, you want to have the police chief call it murder, right? Chief Craig, didn't you call that murder?
That's correct.
Is that a fact? That's a fact. You want the mayor to back up the chief and call it murder. Mayor Duggan, didn't you call it murder?
I sure did.
That's a fact. You want the activists, like the WACP, the leader, did you call that murder?
Yes, sir.
That's a fact. We got young people. I was on the radio with Dr. Darius last night in Detroit, stood up. He'll tell you more about that. Dr. Darius, did y'all call it murder?
Absolutely.
Are they outraged? People are outraged, but it's a fact. So watch this. You want what we got. When you get done all that, you want the people to say it's wrong and you want them to fix it. We already got that. So there's no need to burn here. There's no need to tear up and loot here. There's no need to taunt the police and come out here and start up unnecessary protests here. Don't be fake news. Don't be fake. We don't do that. We Detroit. We what up, though? We stand strong. And we got it here. Our people, our mayor, our chief got it right. Our governor got it right. We ain't doing that. So what our role should be is to be a model and an example. Let's lead the way. And that's why we're here today. The mayor saying, no, let's get the white people in the room. He's being real, and let's lead the way. Chief Craig has got the people he want to talk to and already in relationship. We ain't just got here overnight. Let's lead the way. So you can't extinguish violence with violence. You can't fix poverty with more poverty. You have to have solutions. And we are being a solution-driven protest. What do we want? We want justice. When we want it now. But we have to, I want to make an employee to my young people. Young people, don't be pawns. Don't let them use you and put you on people who come in here who mean no good. These are I was there. I asked them people where they're from. They are outsiders. The majority of people who really care about, watch this, who care about racism and systemic things of that nature, oppression of black people, who really cared about George Floyd's and the many others who really care about that, they came, they protested, they stood, white, black, and green, and they went home in honor. Those who stayed after were rebel rousers, troublemakers. They wasn't from here. They want to do something else. Then they want to use Detroit black kids and throw them in the middle and in the front line of it to get them hurt. We ain't going for that. Don't be no pawn. And I want to tell those, let me tell you something who out here, you coming in the city who's doing this. Let me tell you something about what you're doing. Once again, you don't get it. Once again, you're using black pain. You're using this black man who was embarrassed and murdered. And you ever been beat up in public, knocked out? But imagine having your life took from you in front of everybody. I preached this morning about Jesus on the cross. Could not. He said, I can't breathe. They hung that man high and stripped him naked and murdered him. And Moses went and got involved, watch this, in an altercation in the Bible, but he did it in the wrong way. And he brought in more violence and had to go on a run. And when he tried to call out two brothers and say, hey, why are you striking your brother? They say, who are you? Didn't you kill that guy yesterday? Because he was in the wrong. See, and you can't be in the wrong. Tupac Shakur lost his life getting involved in the wrong way in a fight in the hotel, a Tyson fight, and lost his life behind that. You can't get involved in the wrong. You don't know how it's gonna come out. So for all those who come in here with this stuff, once again, you don't get it. You're using a black man's life and pain to get your agenda across, and you're not respecting the black life that was lost. Back up and show respect. Young people, we the best, you the best in the world. You are kings and queens. Nothing can stop you. You are the best in the world. And use your power to stick to the facts. We want change. We want resolution. We want justice. Don't be tricked. I'll turn it over to Wendell Anthony, I guess. No, Dr. Derrick.
Oh. Thanks, Pastor Mo, Chief Craig, and Mayor Duggan. Thank you for your leadership during this COVID-19 and now this battle that we're facing right now. Dr. Darius from 97.9 WJLB, longtime media personality here in Detroit, born and raised. We've used our platforms to stop the music on Mix 92.3 with Frankie Darcell, who's been a long-time advocate of talking conversations about Detroit for Detroit. Sharon and Kirby Gwen and Bushman. We've all stopped our music and changed and actually gave Detroiters the microphone and let them kind of voice their opinions on air, unedited. They were live, they were real, and we didn't get that vibe that we saw last night. We didn't get that. We didn't get burn it down. We didn't get forget the police. We didn't get none of that. We got people who were encouraged to become, the conversation was about becoming change makers or change agents. If you want change, then you have to be an agent. And we welcome guests from Chief Craig, he spoke. Mary Sheffield, she was on. We have leaders from the NAACP. Detroit was there on air with us. Folks from the New Leaders Council, Detroit was on hand, and all we talked about was change. And what came from that conversation was actually getting out to vote locally, vote for every position, vet every candidate, thoroughly vet every candidate. These are conversations that we had, and how can we become a part of the change process? And the one thing that we got from that was vote and fill out your census form and get the money and the resources that we need here. We didn't get the vibe that we saw last night. So to echo what I've been hearing from the governor of Minnesota to what I'm hearing sitting at the table now, that it does seem like there's an outside influence that is coming in to spark something that we don't have here. We have a great community relationship with our police department that I know of. I've played in Chiefs basketball games where the chief had his team and we, put together a team from the community. There's a lot to learn from policing in Detroit that has come a long way. And we have a lot of respect for our police, from the Detroit Police Athletic League to our kids and neighborhoods that bring everyone together. So we didn't get that vibe last night. And with the stay-home order tonight and the curfew, I challenge, because our kids, I have 3 boys, and the one battle that I fight is the internet right now and batteries and playing video games. But the one thing that I battle on the internet is them learning things that I didn't teach them. And with the internet, we're free to pick up our phones and Google everything. Tonight, folks, I challenge you tonight to get all the information about our history from the internet. Tonight, while you're at home on a Sunday with great dinner, with your family, a good table set, a good vibe, tonight is that conversation that you learn about your family's history, because it comes from them. It comes from their ancestors. And that's one thing that we can learn and become change agents. So while we're at home hitting reset button for COVID-19, we've been learning how to, love our loved ones again, repair relationships, hit reset buttons there. We got to hit reset buttons everywhere. I never knew what it took to be a parent until I became a parent, so thank you to my parents. I never knew what it took to become a teacher until I became a teacher 2.5 months ago, so thank you, teachers. I never knew Detroit's history until I talked to my parents and my uncles and my grandfathers and my grandmothers. I never knew that history. So now is the time for you to reinvest time in your family tonight while you're staying home, and reinvest in the history that comes for you and your family to become a change agent for yourself, your family, and for your neighborhood. And we'll back you 100%. And again, appreciate you guys' leadership, and we continue to move forward. We'll continue to have dialogue and open our radio stations lines up for communication, because this is what's needed. And again, the vibe that we got on the radios last night was not what we saw in the street. So we got a long fight to fight. Once again, get that history from your family. You can't Google everything and get that history, that pain. you'll hear it from the conversations that you get at the dinner table tonight or soon. Thanks.
Reverend Anthony? Okay.
Let's welcome Tommy Mahone.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity, Mayor Duggan, Chief Craig. This message goes out to all the young people that's out there that really want to spread a message and protest the right way. There's a way about going with everything. Violence is not the answer to violence. We in Detroit, we hold a certain type of manner about us. And what we see around the United States is not us, it's not Detroit. We have to settle this matter in a certain way. And from our leaders that's sitting here at this table, they all agree that we are the change and we need to lead America with showing them a different way of handling things. The stay-at-home order for 8 p.m. tonight would be the best thing because, like Dr. Darius said, gives you time to connect and really learn the true history of Detroit, about Detroit. All the things I've seen over the weekend really serve no point, especially the later night events after the real protest had ended, which was peaceful and they went about it the right way. A lot of young people were going downtown just to be a part of the scene and be a part of something without no justification. You need justification to really get something and get a true meaning out of it. And what I think everyone should do is really come together with our community leaders and with the police and with the mayor and with everybody and become one unit because, like Reverend said down there, it's Detroit versus everybody. And we need to take the stand and make the change in a positive way. We've been working all year so hard to bridge that community gap between the community and police, and we've been doing a really good job at it. And it'll be a shame to throw it all away in 3 days. It's really no point for it. So I would say and request for everyone to stay home tonight, you know, reflect on your situations, reflect on this situation that's going on because, yes, it is unjust. Don't no one agree with police brutality. We want to make this change, bridge this gap in this community, and put Detroit on a map in a different limelight than burning buildings and burning cop cars and people getting hurt for no reason and senseless violence. Like, it has to stop, and the change has to stop within yourself. You change yourself, you change everybody else around you. You change everybody else around you, you change the community. You change the community, you change people higher up that's running the community. So I just ask everyone to reflect on yourself, reflect on your situations, that's what you're going through, and see if really going down here downtown to protest and cause violence, is that really going to solve anything? No, it's not. So let's make a change within ourselves, bridge the gap between DPD and everybody higher up in the community, and let's bring everybody together and let's push through it like Detroiters do. And I just want to pass it over to Reverend Anthony.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon to everybody. Let me thank the mayor and the chief and my colleagues. This is not the way I plan to spend my Sunday afternoon. I've been preaching online hard, and I really had planned to be in my backyard with a cup of tea or something brown with a cigar to enjoy my day. But the mayor called and the chief, and I'm here because of the issue in our community. Let me just say this. This is serious. Civil rights and human rights is not a game. This is real. This is important and significant. Let me take you back for a moment, because we have not heard that name in a long time. Fred Finley. 20 years ago, an African-American male by the name of Fred Finley, 32 years of age, was killed in Dearborn, Fairlane Township, Fairlane Mall, in front of Lords and Taylor. His little girl was accused of shoplifting for $4. He was followed by security guards, retained by the police, trained by the police, and he subsequently was strangled to death, killed. 7,000 of us marched in Dearborn. 7,000 in Dearborn. We didn't break a window. We didn't burn a car. We didn't throw a Molotov cocktail. We marched, and we made our point. We believe in marching. I'm proud of the young people who are marching, protesting. I'm proud of the diversity. It's good to see young whites and blacks and Asians and Hispanics and Arabs and Jews marching together for justice. But they also are marching for peace. They're not trying to do this to tear the city up. They're marching because an injustice has been performed. And for those who ask why you're marching, I'll tell you a little story. I was in South Africa a few years ago at the home of Desmond Tutu, who told us a story about, in the heart of the apartheid movement, a young boy came to his parents at the dinner table and said, "Mom and Daddy, there's going to be a march in Soweto tomorrow. I want to go." They said, "No, son, you cannot go. It's going to be dangerous." He left the table. He came back a second time. "Mom and Daddy, I got to go to Soweto. There's going to be a march. I want to be a part of the march." "Son, no, you can't go. It's going to be dangerous. You might be killed." Third time he came back. "Mama and Daddy, I'm going to the march. I insist on going." Mom and Daddy said, "Well, son, why are you so determined to go and be a part of the march?" He looked at his parents and said, "Because Mama and Daddy, if you and Daddy would have been marching yesterday, then I would not need to be marching tomorrow. We did march yesterday. We are marching today. But there's a way in which you march. You don't march to defeat the purpose and the point by which you have organized the march. Let's not take our eyes off the prize. The prize here is justice. Justice. Justice for the family of George Floyd and for George Floyd. Being black is not a crime. America needs to understand that. I think our city gets it. That's why we've worked so hard over the years to have a police force that's reflective of the community and to have leadership that responds to the community. During the course of the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King always had to deal with this mess. There were always infiltrators and saboteurs who infiltrated themselves within the movement. The purpose was to take themselves and to take the attention away from the issue of civil rights. It was to make Dr. King and the peaceful marches look bad, to discredit them. Let's not be bamboozled. These people are not a part of the folk that really are concerned about George Floyd. They have a different agenda. You see it in Chicago, you see it in New York, you see it all over the country. They're coming in with a different agenda. And let me say this, to whom do you think that will benefit? Not us. It will benefit the cat that's in the White House that needs to be kicked out. They didn't say it, I'm saying it. It will benefit the one who's saying that we need to send in dogs, that we need to send in certain kind of weapons, that we need to get looters and start shooting them. It will keep him solidly in place. You are defeating your own purpose. You are putting another knee on the neck of the black community. You are coming in a city that has more deaths among black people than any city in this state. What do you think that's doing for us? That ain't helping us. That's not creating nothing. And I say to the ones who are in the march, who are protesting, take pictures of folk that you know are not working in our behalf. When you see something, tell the police, tell whoever is supposed to be in charge. Disconnect yourself from them. They are not working with your interests and our interests at heart. Mamas and daddies, keep your children at home. Follow the law. Don't let them come in the house or even go out the house without the mask and the gloves and come back into your house and threaten your life because they've been around people that they don't know are carrying the disease. And I want to say to the media, you can help because you know that it's deeper than what the eye is seeing. This is not just a Detroit phenomenon. Call these people out. Some of y'all are investigative reporters. Investigate the folk. Take a look at the movement. Real activists know how to act. They keep their eyes on the prize. They are focused. They are organized. They know who the leadership is and what the issues are really about. Busting up the Detroit police station, that don't do nothing for us. Why are we going to bust it up when they're working with us? Why would you bust up CNN in Atlanta when a CNN black reporter was picked up because he was black, reporting on the truth of what you were about? That's counter-revolutionary 101. You do not cut the communication system that's communicating what you are about. That shows a lack of maturation and understanding what's happening. It also shows that there's some people who are working who don't have our interests at heart. Finally, let me say this. In 1967, when the Kerner Commission came out and talked about how to do policing, talked about diversity, talked about community policing, Dr. Kenneth Clark was the first witness, African-American professor, historian, to testify. He said this: I read the Kerner Commission report. I read of the 1919 riot in Chicago, and it is as if I were reading the report of the investigating committee on the Harlem riot of 1935, the report of the investigating committee on the Harlem riot of 1943, the report of the McCone Commission on the Watts riot. I must again in candor say to you, members of this commission, it is a kind of Alice in Wonderland with the same moving picture reshown over and over and over again, the same analysis, the same recommendations, and the same inaction. Barack Obama came out in 2015 with the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing. I'm glad that we have a chief and a mayor that understands the necessity for community policing. I don't think any of these activists would be sitting here if they did not believe that or had not witnessed that or not seen that. We would all be out there doing something different. I'm simply saying, if you want to tear something up, tear your way to the voting booth in November and throw the rascals out. Tear your way to the voting booth in November and make sure you elect people that are going to appoint people to positions of power that's going to impact your life, that's going to make certain that we have justice and order and equality and equity for all of America's sons and daughters. If you ain't about tearing that up, then you really ain't about the revolution. Thank you, Mayor.
So, mayors across America are trying to keep their communities safe, and there is not a mayor who has the kind of community leadership here. It has been the people of Detroit standing together that have so far protected our city from the fate other cities have seen. And I'm asking you to continue to stay with us. It's going to be the voice of Detroiters protecting our community. We're going to move forward this evening. And those who are from other places, just please stay home. And with that, we'll take any questions.
Larry Spruill of WDIV Local 4. My first question is for Mayor Duggan. I know that you issued the curfew for 8 o'clock tonight until 5 a.m. Do you plan on adding this curfew out throughout the rest of the week, or how long will this curfew last?
It's going to stay in place as long as the chief feels that there is a threat from people outside this community, and hopefully it will not be long.
Chief Craig, my second question, how do you plan on executing this curfew? I know you're expecting protests tonight. If people do stay out past the 8 o'clock, how would you and DPD execute this curfew?
What we're going to do is just like we've done throughout this situation. We're certainly going to warn people that if you don't leave, you could be arrested. And so I'm certain that many who are still around will be compliant. Those who refuse, then we'll take appropriate enforcement action.
My last question
Yeah,
is
we don't want to arrest anybody. Everybody will be given a good opportunity, because the goal of this is not to arrest people. The goal of this is just keep us safe.
My last question is for Pastor Mo and Reverend Anthony. It's been rumors or hearings that there are professional organizations that are being sent to cities to riot and to protest. What would be, you talked both about it briefly, but what would be your message to those people who have plans on coming to the city of Detroit to riot violently? Reverend Anthony and then Pastor Mo, please.
My message to them would be Detroit ain't the place for that, and that we see you. And I would hope also that the media could help expose that by saying we know and you know that there are people that are groups that are doing this. It's all over the country. The fact that you are coming here not to build but to destroy, not to construct but to confuse, not for justice for George Floyd, but for injustice that you're going to leave black folks with, that you're going to tear up something that we have built and established and worked for, and then you're going to go back to Tennessee and Ohio and wherever you came from. No, if you want to do something, righteous, then go to your own local communities and deal with the issues in those communities. We believe that this is a part of a strategic plan. We believe, when I say that, I mean the NAACP, many of us believe this is a bigger plan than what we see. This is a strategy on the part of some, whether it be from the left, whether it be from the right, whether it be from Antifa, which is a group that the president has called out. We are always skeptical when the president gives credit to anybody. It has to be looked with 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 different eyes. That does not mean that they are not a part of it, but to try to localize and legitimize and to just put it on one shelf. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than that because we see the results of it. So no, we will not be a part of it. We're saying to the people that are peacefully protesting, be aware, be alert, take pictures. If people are involved in bad behavior, disconnect from them and report them, document it, so that we will have the evidence that is needed. So when the police come down on those kinds of individuals, that it is clear why they're doing it.
Thank you for the question. I would say to the leaders, I won't even really call them organizers yet, because I haven't seen a lot of organization other than let's get together and be angry, and because and I want to respect them in the sense of I know why you're upset. I feel your passion and I feel your protest. Let me give you some true facts, organizers. I'm the president and the founder of the Live in Peace movement. Let me give you some facts about Live in Peace. We fight for peace. We fight for social justice. Let me give you some real fact. I didn't meet Chief Craig with a handshake and a donut. You know how I met Chief Craig? I was protesting him. All right, Chief Craig?
I recall.
I was protesting in the city of Detroit. Him and I came head to head by the federal building, and the media was seeing us as change, and then he said, hey, you want to talk? And I said, Yeah, I got things I want to say. I got some demands. I had some demands. I had some things I wanted to address. I wasn't just mad. I didn't even know this man. I wasn't just mad at him. I was mad at the situation. And then me and him sat down and talked, and I found out he was just as mad about the same things as I was. And from there, we started a dialogue. And this was years ago, and you know how many things we have put into place about black kids being murdered? That was our passion. Me and him are youth guys. And then we found out that we both loved the youth. I said, well, wow, who knew? He said, yeah. And we started talking about how can we, and listen, know what we agreed on? Know how we became partners in this? We agreed on one word. He said, Pastor Mo. I said, Chief, what we could say, the issue is what? We said, what? Proactive. We both, in the right, Chief? We was like, we got to get proactive. We can't just, the police as naturally get called after what? Something already happens. We want to get ahead of it. And that's when the mayor kicked in. And the mayor said one day, he said, wow, I heard Pastor Mo talk. He said, you get the man the help that he needs. This man's out here trying to save our babies in our city. So I said, hey, when the mayor said that and the chief said that, it's time to talk and negotiate. It's not time to protest them anymore. It's time to get active and let's work together to save children in the city. And from that became Live in Peace. So to all you activists, what is your agenda? What do you want? And if you don't want to sit down and negotiate and be diplomatic and come up with solutions to bridge and change and build, then that means you want something else. And if you want something else in this city, God got enforcement that will give you what you want. But we hoping that you want peace and you want resolution. Because if you want that, I respect you. I would meet with you. And we'll start those negotiations. I'm pretty sure Chief Craig will want to sit down and get you and meet with you to see if we can get you the help that you need to make change. As Dr. Darius said, be a change agent. If you go come in here and be fake news, trying to hurt our people, hurt our kids, we're not standing for that. I guarantee you that.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Ariana with the Detroit News. I have a couple questions for Chief Craig. Can you tell or do you know how many officers are residents versus suburban?
I don't have the stats in front of me. I can tell you that certainly we don't have the law is that a police officer does not have to be a resident of the city of Detroit. That's changed some years ago. But in terms of our residency, I don't even want to take a stab at it. It might be 35, 40%. And
Okay.
I'm guessing.
Yeah, just the estimate.
So, right.
And then for Mayor Duggan, can you go more in detail or explain a little bit more who can and can't be out during a curfew?
So anybody who's on their way to or from work, anybody who's on their way home, anybody who's dealing with an emergency, that's who can be out.
And then how will you guys know, who's doing what, who's going where?
Yeah, again, I think you're going to see the way the Detroit Police Department responds. If they run into somebody who's out there, I think they're going to have a professional conversation with you. What's going on? If it's, hey, I've got a job down at the hospital, I'm on my way, or I'm just on my way home, I was out at this activity, there's not going to be an issue. It's going to be if an officer says, hey, it's 8:30 and you're standing here, do you have some place to be? And I'm confident the police department, they do this over the years in different things like fireworks time and the like, but it will, Chief Craig can talk about how he's going to handle it, but I don't.
Yeah, I wanted just to follow up. And when I made my brief statement about the curfew, one of the things is real critical is our officers' ability to use discretion. Of course, if we have a child that's roaming around after, or a minor, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that minor is connected with their parent. So there are a lot of variables that go into that. This is designed to have an impact on crime.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
Think-
We didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Hi, a couple quick logistics questions for Chief James Craig. Thank you for taking our questions. I know we are all super busy and you have a lot going on. Any update as to the death of the 21-year-old? Do you still believe his death was not protest-related, and do you have an update
Based
on his
on
suspect?
what I know about the investigation, I don't think it's connected to the protests, and we are still actively investigating. We put out an image of a suspect. It wasn't the best, it was a grainy photograph, but we're still asking for the public's help.
Do you know if all of the arrests that have been made because of the protests are, is everyone adult, or are there children, minors involved?
No minors or children I'm aware of. Everyone's adult.
Do you know how many volleys of tear gas were used, and if there were warnings given to protesters ahead of time?
Each and every time warnings were given, that was my direction. I know typically the way we deploy gas is we give 3 warnings. Now, there may be a warning and there may be a deployment of tear gas in rapid succession. The warning's given and an assessment is made as to whether or not the tear gas was effective, and then right behind that would be another volley. So it's not we give a warning, deploy, we wait, give another warning. The idea is whether or not the tear gas was effective. And so that's the direction that I have personally given, and that's what I've seen take place times that I was physically on the ground.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, ML Elric, Detroit Free Press. In terms of the people who live outside the city of Detroit, are you able to ascertain whether that's just the address on their identification, they really live in the city of Detroit, or do they truly live outside the city limits?
You know, maybe they live in Detroit and have a Nashville address, but the indications that we've had, and from people who have been outside and just interacting with people, is this is a crowd that's predominantly made up of non-Detroiters.
Okay. And in terms of the people who come from further away, like Tennessee or Ohio, do you have any indication that they are here just to join the protest, thrill-seek, cause trouble, or they're part of an organized conspiracy to try and derail these sort of things?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call it an organized conspiracy, but we are definitely investigating who the individuals are who, there's no question, have orchestrated things in the last day or two. I think we really became aware of it, the information came last night, and we are now following up on which individuals. And I can't tell you whether it was somebody from Brighton or it was somebody from Nashville, but the police department is now investigating potential charges against people who do appear to be planning some serious types of destruction.
And Chief, can you speak at all to that intelligence you got from the FBI or anything that your folks have gathered in the last 48 hours?
Generally, I don't go into any details about intelligence that I, obtained from the federal government or even intelligence that we may. Part of what we do, we are very strategic in how we address, so it would be, wouldn't make a lot of sense for me to go into a lot of details about our intelligence or intelligence we have from another agency.
Can you characterize it generally? I mean,
No,
was
I
it about
just-
people who came to infiltrate?
I
or-
would just rather not go into the details concerning the intelligence. That's part of our strategic response, and just not going to go into it.
Okay, and last question for me, will you have any problem maintaining the number of officers available tonight? It's a lot of people out the last couple of nights, people got to be getting tired.
Certainly one can expect that. Our Detroit police officers are resilient. Actually, they want to be here. They want to work, keep the city safe. I'm comfortable with our staffing levels. We have made some adjustments over the last several days. As a matter of practice, I don't go into specific numbers. I just say today I feel comfortable with our staffing levels, and I was comfortable last night.
And I want to say thank you again to the men and women of the department. As you can tell, we are staffing up. We're not going to discuss the numbers. We'll be staffing up again tonight. But we're doing it through overtime. We're not pulling cars out of the neighborhoods. And this is another one of the issues, is when we have to deal with these protests and people outside the city, you're draining a police department that has a responsibility to the 700,000 people who live there. But these officers, 6 weeks ago, when we had 600 police officers on quarantine from COVID-19. Every healthy officer in this department was working double shifts. We had almost no sick call-ins if we didn't quarantine folks. It was remarkable. We're going back to the officers again because the chief feels very strongly, as a couple people here today say it's Detroit versus everybody. I know there's other cities in the country asking for outside help, but our officers are stepping up on overtime, and I feel very good about the chief's plan.
If I could just ask ML a question, and I appreciate ML's question, but I just ask a question. Why would someone from Ohio or Tennessee or any other city come to Detroit to demonstrate and protest when the murder occurred in Minnesota, in Minneapolis? There's no issue here that we know of that would require such a national infusion of people. If you wanted to protest the injustice, why would you come to the city of Detroit with this high of COVID-19 rate of any city in the country, protest here as opposed to where the real action is? I'm just asking a question.
All right. Thank you all very much.